Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today to talk about Cayosoft's comprehensive Active Directory solutions. I'm McKenna. I work alongside the Microsoft experts here at Cayosoft. Just a couple housekeeping items to go over before we jump into the presentation. First off, you'll notice your microphones are muted to ensure everyone has the optimal listening experience, but we do encourage you to ask any questions you may have. So depending on how you join today, whether in browser or through the app, you'll see a question or chat section in your meeting dashboard. Feel free to drop your questions in there and we'll do our best to answer them throughout the presentation. If we run short on time today, we'll reach out directly to follow up. At the end of the presentation, we'll also be providing links for additional information, or if you have questions after the presentation, how to contact us. While you're in your meeting dashboard, be sure to check out the handout section as well for some additional resources you can download and share with your team. With us today, we have Chad Nichols, one of our system engineers here at Cayosoft, to walk you through our solutions. But before we get started, if everyone could take a quick moment to follow us on social media, you'll see here on the screen a QR code for each of your favorite social networks. With your phone's camera, you can scan that code and it will take you directly to our social pages. From there, you can follow and subscribe to stay up to date with our most recent news and other industry information. Now that we've got that taken care of, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Chad.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, so today we'll be showing you a demonstration of Cayosoft Administrator, and I'll also touch base a little bit on our Guardian solution, which also includes forced recovery, to kind of round out how we can help with AD management, both on-prem and cloud, cybersecurity, how we can help with group management, both on-prem and cloud, and both provisioning and deprovisioning, some self-service, and also how we can provide all of this to you without you having to provide any native access or roles. So switch over to my demonstration environment real quick. And so the first thing we're going to take a look at is Cayosoft Administrator. Administrator is our solution around day-to-day administration, automated provisioning and deprovisioning, group management, reporting, analytics, allowing you to take care of business processes and procedures from both an automated standpoint and also providing end users, and that end user could be your complete domain administrator or global admin in Azure, all the way down to anyone really in the company that you want to be able to provide access for them to do certain tasks. That could be resetting passwords or creating accounts, deprovisioning accounts, modifying groups. You know, there's a whole set of things that can be done by the product. And you are providing them access to do those things, and they do not need native permissions to do so. They receive their delegation assignments and their permissions around what they're able to see, what they're able to do through the software. And from a threat standpoint, that really minimizes your surface, because hey, if you know, Johnny's account gets compromised and that account has no privileged AD group membership and no roles in Azure, there's a limited amount of damage that can be done with that account. Still a risk, but greatly limited. So very good way to help mitigate some of that security risk. The other side of the administration software administrator is the automation and configuration console. And this is where you set up all the automation, all of the rules around group membership for those groups that you want to automatically populate based on a set of criteria, or maybe this group requires approval before someone can join. User provisioning, deprovisioning, everything around delegation is configured here as well. So this is where the Cayosoft quote unquote administrator will live and breathe and set up everything for other folks to be able to utilize the tool. To get started, once you get everything installed, one of the first things to kind of decide is, well, if I'm going to use this for delegated access, how do I do that? So you really have to kind of think of this in a similar but different way as the way Microsoft has done it in the past with Active Directory. With Legacy Active Directory, you have OU structure. And so your delegation model would be, okay, I point to OUX. I give this group of users the ability to, manage user accounts or manage groups or whatever that is. And you do all of your delegation directly through Active Directory users' computers. Well, with the hybrid world, there's no one-to-one correlation between those synced accounts on-prem and the cloud, because in Azure, for all intents and purposes, it's a flat directory. So there's really no easy way to delegate that access. And so what Cayosoft had to do is come up with a kind of a clever way to extend your management from both on-prem to the cloud in a way that makes sense and is very repeatable. And so for that, they came up with, and we came up with, virtual administrative units. And these are used to scope delegation for those users and groups that you want to provide administration capabilities to. You can do that around OU, you can do that around attributes. It's very flexible. But if you look at one of the examples here, I have this Columbus one. These are all the objects that are available through the web to manage. And if I look at the users here, this is an example of one that's been basically scoped around OU in AD. However, these are synchronized accounts. So not only do I have the ability to perform Active Directory type actions, looking at properties, resetting the password, renaming the accounts, things like that, but it's really also allowing me to leverage all of the, or the majority of the cloud activities as well. So authentication methods, legacy MFA, signing people out of sessions, licensing, Teams policies, OneDrive, Teams Voice, Mailbox. So it really eliminates the need for the most individuals that are doing day-to-day tasks. We're having to go to 4 and 5 different administrative consoles on-prem and cloud to perform their daily tasks. You go to a single pane of glass, look into the environment, and then that way the software knows where to go to grab the necessary information and do any kind of updates. So very clean, unified interface to provide access to both on-prem and cloud type of objects in a single location. If you have cloud-only objects, we do provide for that as well. And that's what the Microsoft 365 area is around. So this could be my cloud-only groups, my teams, my cloud-only users, the ones that I would administrate solely from the cloud because they don't exist on-prem. But again, I don't have to go to another management interface. It's all done in the same single pane of glass. And while this user is an administrative user, so they see everything, a true end user that's been delegated access will only see specifically what they're allowed to see from a administrative unit perspective, from a object type perspective, and then also only be able to do limited actions based on their role. So it's really around roles and providing that delegation, in the least privileged manner to only those that need that access. We also do provide some ways to help with self-service or self-governance. The self-service area of the tool is something that is pre-built out of the box, ready to go. And every single search in any of these queries is literally based on who is logged in at the time. So my user I'm in with right now has groups that they are the manager of in Active Directory. And so therefore they see a list of groups. If I log in with a different account and look at the same location, the view is completely different. And in this case, this user owns no groups, so they don't see anything here. So the self-service area is really about really empowering end users, helping them with some management tasks that can free up the help desk, reduce some of those support calls, and enables those end users to be able to do some of those things themselves. And again, everything here is completely targeted. So my AD users, these are the users that report to me. I'm their manager. My AD memberships, groups I'm a member of, teams I own, and so on and so forth. So very, very, very targeted area. And now maybe as a manager of users, I want my users to be able to say, hey, Chad, please reset my password. And I can give them the ability to do that very easily. And it's only targeted to the users and groups and things that are intertwined and really a part of the user that's logged in. So all of that security is really built in as part of the self-service area. Once I've defined my virtual administrative units, I know how I'm going to break my users out either on-prem, synced, or cloud. Then it's time to delegate that access. So if we look at the Columbus area again, I like to pick on Columbus because that's where I live. You can see that, yeah, this is going to pull back the users here in this OU. But on the right-hand side, you see a lot of different actions. So this is something from an administrative standpoint that's probably not a good idea. You're not going to give every single user the access to be able to do everything because that makes no sense. You want to target this delegation. This is an administrative account, so it can see everything. But this user, on the other hand, is very limited. So they only see the Columbus administrative unit. They see users and groups, and they only see a subset of the actions available to take on those objects. For users, this help desk user can provision new folks. They cannot delete anyone or suspend them or deprovision them. They can't do a lot of the other actions that were available to the previous user who's an administrator. From a group standpoint, this user cannot even create new groups. He can modify membership, so I can take a help desk call from an end user and say that wants to be a member of a group, and I can do that modification of the membership and help end users out. But this person does not need that, so they don't have that access. So we've very targeted way to provide that delegation. So now that we've kind of given everybody kind of a look and feel around the single pane of glass and how we can kind of divvy out things and provide that access, let's talk about compliance and also talk about provisioning, deprovisioning of user accounts. You can do that in a couple different ways. We can do that fully automated. There are runbooks that are available that will do the full end-to-end creation of a user. And I will take a look at that in just a moment, but to kind of give you an idea of how that works, and also to provide some more context around how we can really target attributes and other data information to provide repeatable data entry and hopefully prevent as many spelling errors and just normal human being things that we can get into. Prevent that as much as possible. We can place controls around the web. By default, all of our attributes that are available in the web forms, whether that is a user, group, or teams, or whatever that is, are read-write. But we can also make them read-only. We can hide them. We can do regex masks, drop-down lists, a lot of different things that can help prevent those types of normal, I'm a human being and I make mistakes, try to minimize that as much as possible. Can we prevent everything? Absolutely not. But the better we can protect the data that gets input into AD and Azure AD, the more useful reports and everything's after the fact will be. So just to kind of do an example of this, here's Steve Smith, I have a regex mask that forces capital letters on the first letter of the first name and the last name. Actually, the first and third on the last name. Until I fix this, I can't continue. Very, very simple, right? I'm very OCD about this kind of thing. I want the data to be as pristine as possible. Now that I've fixed that, notice that the other information here, my full name, SAM account name, display name, all those things have been configured for me. So I have naming rules within the product that can set all this up. Whatever naming convention you use at your company, match that to that. Hey, we have some customers that have multiple naming standards depending on the type of individual or the location. All very customizable. But again, as an end user, I didn't have to do anything. So I just typed in the first and last, everything else is done for me. We can also provide Azure/Office 365 licensing as part of the provisioning process, both from a web and automation standpoint. If I look at this is kind of the legacy way to do licensing if you're doing user-based licensing. And what I've done here is I've picked some defaults. This one I've actually made read-only because, hey, if you're going to have an Exchange license, you have to have, if you have a mailbox, you have to have a license. So I've forced that. I can't uncheck it. I've also hidden a couple of my license types. So again, preventing people from seeing what you don't want them to see, giving them some guidance, even though it's kind of forced guidance around what they can do and what they can't do. Some of this I can freeform click, some I can't. We also have what's available for those types of license assignments, what we call license profiles. And so let's say that a specific type of user gets an E3 license. This kind of user, depending on what they are, gets an E5. If you can define that, basically what you do then is you set that up, and in this case, associates get an F3. I've done all of the configuration here within the administration tool, and the end user now doesn't have to do anything. There's no guesswork. Again, trying to make it as easy as possible, repeatable for the end user to keep the data as pristine as you can. Here's an example of where I've automatically generated the time and date and the user who did the entry. Again, data integrity. Here's an example of drop-down list. Here's where I've pre-filled address information. And I'll show you this here in a second in the automation tools, which we can also do through our runbooks. Required fields, so I have to do this before I can continue. You can add up to 20 different Active Directory attributes here in this new user area, and also properties, so you can show that later. Map those literally to any attribute that's available in AD, and then put a friendly label on that field. Someone in HR probably does not know what an extension attribute is or what it even means, and they don't know what extension attribute X is mapped to in AD, and they shouldn't care. They do know what employee number is, so let's fill that in and make it easy for the end user. Lastly, for data, we also have what's called virtual attributes. These are attributes that are defined by the customer. They only live inside of the Cayosoft product itself. So therefore, maybe you've run out of extension attributes. Maybe there is some PII type data that you do not want to have in Active Directory because, in general, for most attributes, anyone that has users' computers plugin, they can take a look at that, and that could be a privacy concern. These are completely user defined. Add as many as you want. Don't use it if you don't want to, but it's here if you need it. And only if you have privileges to read these can you see them. For those using the delegation, the service that runs the Cayosoft product handles all of the communications with Active Directory, with Azure Active Directory, and everything in between. So it's the service that takes care of all this stuff. And now if I am one or more users in the web, or if I'm doing the web plus automation rules, I don't have to wait for any particular action to be complete before I can go on to my next thing. And if you have multiple users logged in, again, Person A does not have to worry about person B. They just do what they need and they get it done. Also, the data that is pulled here is always a live read or write operation to either AD or Azure AD or both, or Office 365. So if I'm an end user and I make a modification to a user account or a group or something, the next person that does that read operation, it will pull in the latest and greatest data, and that way you always have the best data at your disposal. This is interesting because something always happens when you're doing a demo, but that's okay. At the end of the day, this is irrelevant because I'll worry about this later. But what I really wanted to show here is that we provide a complete end-to-end provisioning process. So not just creating and leveraging the on-prem account, but also enabling the attributes for remote mail. Pre-create the Office 365 user. Do that with the immutable ID set. So when AD Connect replicates, it will map the AD user to the pre-created cloud user, and we won't get duplicates in the cloud. And then that allows me to do the license assignment, a more complete, robust provisioning process, so you can get the mailbox and the teams and all those things pre-created much quicker. Because we don't control that process, Microsoft does that for us. For automation, if you have a HR database, or HR can provide a text file as your source of information, then we do what is called a runbook, which is just a set of rules that run in order to perform tasks. In this case, it's provisioning users. So I have a text file that HR has provided me, and now I've taken that data, I've mapped it to the appropriate AD attributes with the appropriate naming convention, do that all through automation rules. Here I have updated the address information based on the office location, again, creating the cloud account, doing the licensing, the remote mailbox enablement. So the full end-to-end process here again, with one additional rule, because this is a bulk update, I have to know, hey, where do these users go in my OU structure? And now all I need is that originating data when users are to be provisioned, set all this up, put a schedule, how often I need it to run, daily, weekly, whatever is good for your organization. And it just runs and it does everything fully automatic. You can do multiple different versions of rules within here with different filter criteria to address different types of users based on, if you have contractors that get a certain set of options versus full-time employees that get a different set. And you can also do multiple runbooks. So very customizable, configurable. If you have a solution today like a Workday or ServiceNow that does the pre-creation of the user account in AD, and you want us to pick it up and do everything else, that's fine. And we have customers that just do the AD piece and let Microsoft Connect do everything else. It's up to you, and really whatever meets your business needs, we'll try to match that and make it work. Provisioning is definitely very important. Deprovisioning, in my opinion, is even more so. That's because you don't always know why someone is leaving the organization. It could be on their own, and it could be, well, unfortunate. To do the deprovisioning, though, we have what's called a whole process around that, and we call that process suspend. So it's not just disabling the AD account and that's it. So I have Clark here, typical user account with normal account information. He reports to me, normal contact info. He's a member of a bunch of groups, just a run-of-the-mill user. Let's say that he's leaving. Let's say he's going on sabbatical or maybe retiring. There's a couple different ways you can do this. you can do it through the web. So we have this action called suspend a user, which you can do right away, which is what I'm going to do. And you can also do it on a schedule. So let's say Friday at 5. We also have the ability to do this via full automation. So again, if you have a SQL or an Oracle database or a text file that you can reference that will show a list of users that need to be deprovisioned, no problem, set a schedule. It will watch for those users to be in that deprovisioned activity, and it will run through and do whatever operations that you've configured. Because the suspend is not around just AD. It's also around Office 365/Azure. We want to make sure that when a synced account is deprovisioned, it's a full end-to-end sync. So yes, we do take care of AD. So I've taken the account, I've disabled it, I've stripped after information, I've removed it from its groups, I put it into my deprovisioned OU. I've done all that stuff that we've always done, for the past 20 years. But now I also want to take care of the Office side. So suspending their OneDrive, modifying those settings, preventing sign-in, signing them out of their sessions, deregistering them from MFA. If they have their phone and they're in the Office app, they are no longer registered and they're signed out. So they can't walk out of the building and do something they might regret and could hurt the company. Changing their mailbox to a shared mailbox, removing it from the GAL, removing the license, all those types of things to make it a full deprovision. So when I'm done here, so is the user, like completely. And if I go back and take a look at him real fast, you'll see that his properties have all been updated. He no longer reports to me. All of his attributes have been cleared and all of his groups. So again, fully decommissioned. Now, if there's a case where you've done this and, oh, darn, I, picked the wrong account, I got to reverse this because I did something, or maybe this person's coming back and it's maternity or paternity leave or something like that. I can always undo this process. And for that, we have undo suspend. So as part of the suspend process, we record all of the information that's changed during suspend. So that way we can basically just reverse it. And this takes care of both the Office side and the on-prem side, all simultaneously. So when this is done, Clark has been restored. All his information is back. Everything's just like it was prior, with the exception of I randomized the password as part of my process, so I have to reset the password and give him a new password. But everything else has been restored. So he's back to just exactly the way he was prior to me doing the suspend. The only limitation to this is the account does have to still be in AD for us to be able to undo it. If it's been deleted, that kind of eliminates the ability to undo it. But as long as it's there, we can easily reverse this. All right, so that kind of goes over a little bit of the provisioning and the deprovisioning. Again, all this is both available through the web and also through full automation rules with the database, source, and or text file. And most HR systems of today will have the ability to do one or the other or both. Next thing I want to talk about real quick is groups. So we can help in several different ways with helping you manage groups, both from on-prem, cloud, both. For on-prem, very simple. You pick a group, you create what we call a membership rule around what attributes or qualities of an object does it need to meet to become a member of that group. So I add a membership rule. In this case, I'm looking at 80 users. We do support all of the group types or object types that can go into groups. And we also have some pre-made queries. Employee under manager is probably my favorite because that's a nice organizational one where I used to work years ago. I had to do a recursive PowerShell script for this, which was quite a pain. But with this, we have it all built in. And you can also leverage databases for the information as well. So technically, the query does not have to include something that's in AD. So maybe there's some data somewhere that's not in AD, and I need to populate a group based on that data. You have some extended flexibility there. You come up with whatever the query criteria is. In this case, very simple. If I'm in Columbus and I'm in engineering, I'll be added to the group. If I no longer meet those criteria, I'll be removed from the group. So great business case that happens all the time. You'll have a user that either maybe is migrating from one location to another, or maybe their duties have changed and they're in a different department or a different title. Well, normally that would be, okay, now I have to call the help desk, I have to open a ticket to request to be added to group A, B, C, or D. In this case though, everything's done for you. So now I've set up the requirements. So Sally is in engineering in Columbus today. Tomorrow, she's transferring to Atlanta. As soon as the city has been updated in her AD account, now she no longer meets this requirement. So the next time this rule runs, it will remove her from this group. And now she does meet this requirement in Atlanta. So now she'll be added to that group. I didn't have to call the help desk. I didn't have to open a ticket. It was just done for me. And really where this probably becomes most valuable from a security standpoint is group cleanup. While you always have a ticket when somebody needs added to a new group, what do you always not get? A ticket that they need removed from the old groups. So you have ticket bloat, you have security concerns as well, depending on what they're doing and how they're changing roles. You don't want them to have access to that information anymore. So the more you can define these groups, the automatic membership, the easier it is to maintain because they just maintain themselves. So it makes it very simple. Cloud groups, we handle basically in the same manner. You still do a membership rule, you do a query based on attributes, but the nice thing is because we understand the hybrid world, you can directly query AD for any attribute that is available in AD to build a query to populate a cloud group. So for my synchronized accounts, I can use my on-prem AD attributes for that data. I do not have to modify my AD Connect sync rules to add extra attributes to my sync. And that is awesome because I don't like messing with my AD Connect any more than I need to. And in a lot of organizations, that might be a completely different group. So it takes a lot of the extra process out of this, makes it super easy, keeps my synchronization nice and clean. And if I have a group that maybe I want to have both synced users and cloud users, I can do that very easily. So you can add multiple membership rules, and this goes for both the AD and the Office side. Includes, excludes, include objects, exclude objects. So make this very, very simple, make it very complex. We do support all group types for both on-prem and all group types in cloud, including Teams. Once you've got this configured, test it, make sure the membership looks right, and then set a schedule. How often do you want it to update? And now I control how often my cloud groups are updated, not Microsoft. And if I have a VIP start, I can easily do a manual update to these groups. So it makes it very, very easy. For the groups that you cannot dynamically control the membership, there may be an instance where there has to be some kind of approval around someone being added to a group. Maybe it's a secure group, maybe it's for licensing. Doesn't really matter. If there's a need for that kind of thing, we have that built in. So restricted groups are for those groups that are restricted, that you can't just add anybody to it because of reason A, B, or C. In this case, I've targeted a sales group. and I want to put some requirements around the membership. One of the first things I can do is set eligible members. So, hey, if it's a sales group, I have to be in the sales department. And if I am not, then I'm not eligible. And now I don't even get past the initial ask. I get a message that says, sorry, you're not eligible to be in the group because you're not in the sales department, for example. So it kind of heads that request off at the pass. The person that approves the group doesn't even know about it, and they don't care. If I do meet the requirements and I'm targeting the group that I want to target, now how do I want to handle the approval? With that self-service area that I showed initially, you can publish groups for self-service join, which means as an end user, I can look for groups that will allow me to add myself to the group. You can also require approval on these groups. If I do need to require approval, who does it? The group owner. If you have that populated, someone else. So you have some flexibility around who does the approval request. But the most important thing is the approval request burden is now in the hands of the people that should know the answer. You don't have to worry about IT reaching out to people manually to do this. It's a completely automated process from end to end. And the way it works is, say I have Dolores is called into the help desk. Talk to John here. And she wants to be a member of sales. So he can come in here, modify the membership, and we'll do a quick search for her. And pick her. And now she's in this list. Also note that we can and do support start and end time. So if this is something that's a temporary request, maybe for a change activity or a consultant or a contractor coming in to do work for a limited period of time, you can set a start and an end time and date, or after a number of hours. So you can do some time-based membership. Because this requires an approval, when I go to update it, I'm going to now get a pop-up that basically says, okay, this requires approval. And now I just type in my reasoning for the the reasoning for me to be in the group. Maybe it's a ticket number, whatever that is. Really, it's up to you. It's totally customer driven. Now that I've done that, basically what's going to happen is the owner of the group, the approver, in this case it happens to be the owner, will get an email letting them know that, hey, there's an approval request out there. So once the email opens up here, I'm going to get that email, and then it's just as simple as going into the software, going into the web, and responding. So here's my email that came through. And as soon as this loads, I'll click that link and will take me into the web, unless Microsoft wants to block it initially. There we go. And now the actual approver of the group will get the ability to either approve or not approve the person being added to the group. And they get all the information that they need to make that determination. So here's my group, the requester, the comment, and then the list of users that want to be added. And now this puts the burden of approval on the people who should know. A salesperson, the manager of the sales team is going to know if this person should be in the group, not an IT guy or the help desk. We don't know that stuff, but these guys do, or gals. So put that burden in the place where it should be. Make it nice and seamless and completely automated. If I approve it, the person's then added to the group immediately. If I reject it, they're not. So I haven't broken any security, nothing's, going to blow up. Regardless of the outcome, the original requester, whether that's a help desk individual or an end user or whatever that is, they'll get an email giving them the status that here's my rejection, if it was a rejection, including the comment that I typed in, or if it's something that I've approved, same thing. But you get a full email response letting you know the status of your request. So full end-to-end, look into that. All right, so we kind of talked about the provisioning, deprovisioning. We talked a little bit about groups. There are many other things inside of the administrator that we don't have time to cover today that we can definitely do a more targeted demonstration for you if you'd like. Because we do have analytics, we have reporting, there's license optimization, there's other things within the tool that can definitely be leveraged to manage and help administrate your environment, both automatically and then, of course, I would say semi-automatically, because even though I am clicking buttons, there's background rules that run to kind of keep these tasks at bay and make sure I'm conforming to my compliance and my naming standards and all those things. So let's talk about Guardian. Our administrator is all around administration and automation. Guardian is all around protection. So there's 3 pieces to Guardian: threat detection, change monitoring, and forced recovery. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these today, just because in the interest of time, I don't want it to be a 3-hour demo. But at a high level, threat detection, looking at configurations and or items in the environment that could potentially open you up to risk. This could be from a scan that we've done and identified. It could be from a real-time change. So as things occur in the environment and as things are identified that maybe were configured ages ago, maybe I did something with access into AD, and I turned on anonymous access because of some application 20 years ago. You're going to know that, and we're going to tell you. And then it gives you the ability to determine that, yes, this is something we need to fix, or no, this is something that we accept the risk, and so we're going to exclude it from now on. We were not going to change anything from a configuration standpoint in your environment automatically, because we don't know your environment, you do, but you're going to get the ability to know when there's things that pose risk that could be configured, and you'll get the ability to take a look at those and remediate them or exclude them if it's an accepted risk. Think of it as virus for AD and Azure AD. There's also the change monitoring piece. So this is taking a look and looking at real-time changes within Active Directory and Office. Here's a good example of this. I did that Steve Smith user account recently. It looks like my Azure Sync has kicked off. So even though I did some of this work through the administrator product, there's still a lot of other background processes that are occurring. And I also have admins that don't use administrator, perhaps. They still use native tools for different things. Regardless of where the change is made or what kind of changes is to on-prem and also cloud, you're going to get a record of that change, a record of who made the change. You're going to see the before and after snapshot. So in this case, Clark was re-added to this San Francisco group based on my reprovision when I did the undo suspend earlier. The other thing we allow with the Guardian tool is the ability to undo an unwanted change. So if somebody makes a change to a group or an attribute or a group policy on-prem, or they've made a change to conditional access policy or named locations or things in the cloud, you'll see that record, you'll see who did it, you'll know when it happened, and you can also roll it back. You can also roll it back automatically, which we won't get into today. That's more of a targeted Guardian demo, but you do have the ability to do that. The final piece of Guardian is all around forced recovery. So this is when you've been attacked. It's not an individual or a group change or something that somebody has initiated either on purpose or maliciously or whatever. These individual changes, they're easy to record, they're easy to undo because my AD still is up and running and my Azure AD is still is up and running, so I can communicate with those and fix it. Forced recovery is when I've been attacked. The ransomware virus has encrypted every single thing in my environment. All of my DCs are dead. So it's like the end of the world for my domain. How am I going to get back? That's where forced recovery comes in. We do backups with forced recovery that can be sent to either on-prem, and we can also back up directly to the cloud, both AWS and Azure, which provides some great immutability from the bad guys. While it's not impossible to figure out where things are in the cloud, it's very, very difficult. The domain doesn't know anything about it. They do, to a certain extent, potentially know about shares. So immutability wise, that's a great way to kind of place the backup in a place that the bad guys can't reach it. It's also done through very secure APIs. It's not done through SMB or anything that is not secure. So you set your backup on a schedule, back up the DCs you want to back up, put the backups in the location that you want to put them, encrypt them, all the things that you would expect from a good backup. Where the recovery kind of takes place and is different than other folks in the space, we can actually schedule recoveries. And the reason being is because we understand the full hybrid world. And so now you no longer have to build your own VMs to do a recovery. So also, if I get hit with ransomware, in most instances, I don't know that my recovery is going to work until I'm doing it. I've been through a ransomware attack where I used to work, and the recovery process was pretty crazy and very nerve-wracking. We had to build everything, we had to recover everything, we had to do everything from scratch through traditional backups. But with this, what we're going to do is we're going to take the DCs you want to recover, and we're going to automatically recover them in the cloud on a scheduled basis. So it's going to build the VMs. It's going to build everything for you and do all of the recovery, all reboots, everything. So when everything's done, you have a full working copy of your forest in the cloud. And now to recover from a ransomware attack, all I have to do is come out here to my to the cloud where my DCs have already been recovered. Currently, they're not running because at the end of the process, we shut them down. So it's a very cheap way to recover as well. So I spin these up, modify my VNet to where it's routable and peerable, because when we build this, it's completely isolated. And that's my recovery. So it makes your recovery process way quicker, and the recovery's already occurred. It's already built the VMs, it's already done all the checks. I can see in Guardian that everything looks good, everything's green, so everything worked perfectly. If there was a hiccup, I'm going to get an alert on that and I can address it long before I ever get hit with a ransomware virus. So really, the standby forest or instant recovery we have through Guardian is all about trying to getting up quickly with minimal effort and much quicker than usual. So Guardian, again, this is kind of a very, very fast overview, but all around protecting your environment, both on-prem and cloud, both from a threat perspective, a change perspective, and in the case of a full outage of your forest. So administrator administrates, guardian protects, and both of those solutions put together, try to really round out the whole of how we can, help organizations. And, both of these are basically 2 installs, one install for administrator, one install for guardian, and it's not module based, and you don't have to piece everything together. You just get it. And that's it for me. I'm going to switch back over to the slide presentation, and I am going to turn this back over to McKenna. And please, McKenna, it's all you.
Thanks, Chad. All right, so Chad did a great job today kind of showing you our one-stop shop for managing, monitoring, and recover your Active Directories. This is a full suite of integrated products. And as he touched on, these do dovetail together to create a comprehensive offering to not only protect and secure, but help manage complex hybrid AD environments without the hassle of multiple disconnected systems or complicated, outdated legacy tools. As Chad mentioned, from an administrative perspective, using those granular roles and rules, you can efficiently manage and control your environment, all while increasing efficiency through automation, reducing errors, and eliminating potential vulnerabilities. Next, with our change monitoring and threat detection, you can stop attackers before they have a chance to act, instantly or automatically rolling back those malicious changes or mistakes. And then finally, recovery. Like he said, think of this as that insurance policy for when the worst happens. So when your AD goes down and you need to be able to get back fast, regardless of the scenario. So it enables you to reduce the costly impacts caused by AD outages, including employee downtime, lost sales, and even detrimental effects to your company's reputation. So just a quick overview there for you. Again, as Chad said, we can do more in-depth demonstrations. So while we didn't cover all of these offerings today, we did want to provide you with some additional ways to get more information. You'll see here on the screen a few quick links for the Cayosoft website. Should you have any additional questions, you can visit cayosoft.com/question. If you'd like to schedule that personalized demo or get a free trial, you'll also see the links here on the screen. We also have that QR code on the screen that you can scan with your phone's camera. It will take you to the demo request page. And of course, for more information about Cayosoft and our solutions, feel free to visit cayosoft.com. Well, that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for your time, and everyone have a great day.